The night Mrs. Carter first whispered, "Don't trust your husband," I laughed it off. She was 82, lonely, always sitting on her porch with a blanket over her knees, watching people like she was guarding the whole neighborhood. I thought it was just her age talking, but the way her faded blue eyes held mine, it made something cold move inside me. I returned home that evening, trying to brush off her warning, but a small part of me wished I had listened sooner. Because the truth was already moving toward me like a storm I couldn't escape. My husband, Daniel, had always been the calm one, the steady one. The man who brought me flowers for no reason, who kissed my forehead every morning, who told me I was safe with him. Maybe that's why I ignored the little signs late-night meetings. The second phone he claimed was for work emergencies. The way he locked his office, when he'd never done that before. I wanted to believe our life was perfect, that our marriage was real, and untouched by secrets. But every time I waved to Mrs. Carter from across the street, she watched me with a sorrow that felt too heavy to ignore. One night, when Daniel wasn't home, I saw her porch light blink 3 times. It was her signal, something she mentioned once in passing. "If I ever see something you need to know," she had said softly, "that light will blink." I stepped outside, heart pounding against my ribs. When I reached her porch, she grabbed my hand with trembling fingers. "He's not who you think he is," she whispered, "and you're in danger." Her voice cracked, like she had been carrying this truth alone for far too long. I wanted answers, but all she asked was, "Has he taken you to the storage unit yet?" I felt the air leave my lungs. Daniel had a storage place he'd never let me visit, saying it was where he kept old business files. Mrs. Carter shook her head slowly, tears shining in her eyes. "Your husband isn't storing files. He's storing pieces of his past. And those pieces, they're coming back for him." I didn't know whether she was speaking literally or emotionally, but I felt fear grip me like a cold hand around my spine. That night, when Daniel returned, I watched him more closely than ever. The way he smiled, the way he kissed my cheek, it all felt like a mask he had worn for years. He sat at the table eating dinner like nothing was wrong, completely unaware that my world was shifting. He talked about work, traffic, the weather, everything ordinary, while something enormous and dark hid beneath his words. I realized then that love can make you blind. But fear gives you sight. Over the next days, I followed the instincts I'd ignored for so long. When Daniel left for another late meeting, I drove to the storage facility. The moment I stepped inside his unit, the smell of dust and old wood wrapped around me, but it was the boxes labeled only with dates, not descriptions, that made my stomach twist. I opened one and found photographs, newspaper clippings, and letters. Not business files, not paperwork. Stories of women who had disappeared without explanation over the last 15 years. And in every folder, in every clipping, Daniel's name appeared somewhere in the margins as a co-worker, a neighbor, a friend, always near, always present. I froze when I heard a sound behind me. A footstep, a slow, familiar breath. I turned around, and there he was, Daniel, standing in the doorway. Eyes calm, expression unreadable. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly, almost sadly. His voice wasn't angry. It was colder than that, almost disappointed. I stepped back, my knees weakening. "What is this?" I whispered, "Who are these women?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped toward me and closed the door behind him, the lock clicking with a finality that made my heart stop. Hours passed in a blur of terror and confusion. He didn't hurt me. He didn't threaten me. He just talked about who he used to be, the man he tried to leave behind, the mistakes that followed him like shadows. He cried, and I cried, too, because love doesn't die in one moment. It breaks slowly, painfully, like a rope fraying fiber by fiber. When he finally let me leave, he said only one thing. "I never wanted you to know. I drove straight to Mrs. Carter's house." She was waiting on the porch as if she knew I would come. I collapsed into her arms, sobbing. She held my face gently. "Some men bury their past," she whispered. "But your husband buried the truth." As I cried in her lap like a child, she stroked my hair and said, "You're safe now. You saw what you needed to see, but safety was a lie." 2 nights later, Daniel disappeared. His car abandoned by the river. His phone left running, with 20 missed calls. And the police? They found nothing, not a trace, not a clue. Sometimes I wonder if he ran because he loved me or because he feared what I had learned. Sometimes I wonder if he's still out there, living under another name, trying to outrun the same shadows he once kept locked away in those dusty boxes. But most nights, when the wind is quiet and the neighborhood is still, I see Mrs. Carter's porch light blink 3 times. I don't know if it's a warning or a comfort. Maybe both. Maybe she's reminding me that secrets don't die. Maybe she's telling me he's close. Or maybe she's telling me the truth was never about him. Maybe it was about me finally seeing the life I thought I had for what it truly was. A quiet lie. A beautiful illusion. A love built on bones I was never meant to find. When Daniel vanished, the silence he left behind was louder than any truth he had confessed. For days, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house felt like footsteps. Every passing shadow on the wall looked like a memory reaching out from the dark. Mrs. Carter checked on me every morning, leaving warm tea on my doorstep with notes like "Breathe today," or "You survived the truth." But surviving and understanding are 2 different things. And I was still drowning in the second. The police kept asking questions I couldn't answer without shattering the last pieces of the man I loved. I told them he was stressed, overworked, overwhelmed. But I couldn't say what I had seen in that storage unit. I couldn't tell them about the photographs, the newspaper clippings, or the trembling confession he had whispered in that dusty room. Because even if it was wrong, even if it was dangerous, a part of me still loved him. And love, when broken, can make fools of even the strongest hearts. One evening, while I sat at the kitchen table staring at the untouched dinner, my phone vibrated with a message. No name, no number, just a sentence. "Check box 14. My heart nearly stopped. I had opened many boxes that night, but not all. There were more, too many for me to bear alone. I drove back to the storage unit, hands shaking the whole way. The night was colder than usual, and the air inside the unit felt colder still. Dust floated like tiny ghosts as I unlocked the door and searched for box 14. It was smaller than the others, older. Its edges soft from wear, like it had been opened and closed hundreds of times. Inside, I found a stack of letters tied with a thin blue ribbon. My name was written on the top envelope, in Daniel's handwriting, from 8 years ago, before our marriage, before the life we built. I opened it slowly, afraid of the truth waiting inside. His words were shaky, rushed like he wrote them in fear. If anything ever happens to me, go to Mrs. Carter. She knows the parts of me I could never tell you. I felt my breath catch. Mrs. Carter? The old neighbor? The woman who warned me? The one who blinked her porch light like a silent signal in the night? Why would Daniel trust her more than me? When I reached her house, she opened the door before I knocked, as if she had been listening for my footsteps. Her living room smelled like lavender and old books, a comforting scent that clashed with the storm inside my heart. She motioned for me to sit as if preparing for a conversation she had rehearsed for years. Daniel wasn't always the man you knew, she began, her voice trembling with age and memory. Before he loved you, he was running from people who wanted him to disappear. I leaned forward, tears blurring my vision. Disappear? For what? She hesitated, eyes softening with something deeper, then pity, something like guilt. Your husband was involved in something he couldn't walk away from. Something that took good people and turned them into ghosts. Her words cut through me like icy wind. I wanted details. I wanted truth. But instead of explanations, she walked to her bedroom and returned with a dusty old box. Everything you need to understand is here, she whispered, placing it in my hands. Inside were photographs, ones I had never seen before. Daniel looked younger, harder, wearing clothes that didn't match the gentleman I loved. He had a different name, different friends, and in the background of one group picture, I saw Mrs. Carter when she was younger. They knew each other. Not as neighbors, as survivors. My world tilted. My hands went numb. Nothing made sense, yet everything suddenly connected. The warnings, the fear, the blinking light, the sorrow in her eyes each time she saw me with him. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I asked, voice cracking like glass. Because he begged me not to, she said softly. He wanted one part of his life to remain untouched by his past. You were that part. I broke down crying, not out of anger, but grief for the man I thought I knew, grief for the secrets he carried alone, grief for the love built on fractures and shadows. As I sobbed, Mrs. Carter held my hands and whispered the words I will never forget. You weren't living in his lie. You were living in his hope. Outside, the wind howled against the windows. The world felt colder, the night heavier, and somewhere far away, or maybe not far at all, I felt Daniel's absence settle into my bones, but deep inside, I also felt something strange, something unsettling. A sense that his story wasn't over. Not yet. The night after Mrs. Carter revealed the truth, sleep wouldn't come. I lay awake, replaying every conversation, every touch, every smile Daniel ever gave me. Each memory felt different, now soft moments wrapped around hidden thorns. I kept thinking about that picture in the old box, the one where Daniel stood beside Mrs. Carter decades before we ever moved into this neighborhood. They weren't strangers. They had history, and history never stays buried for long. Around 3 a.m., a sharp knock echoed through my house. Not polite, not hesitant. A firm, calculated knock. My heart thundered so loudly I could hear blood rushing in my ears. I approached the door slowly, peeking through the small crack in the curtains. 2 people stood on the porch, 1 man, 1 woman, both in dark coats, badges faintly visible under the porch light. FBI. I opened the door with trembling fingers. The woman spoke first. Ma'am, we need to ask you a few questions about your husband, Daniel Harper. Double quotes Harper. The name in the photographs, not the name on our marriage license. I stepped aside, letting them in. The man scanned the living room carefully before sitting down. The woman opened a folder and placed 2 photos on the table. In both, Daniel looked different, hard eyes, sharp jaw, no softness at all. A stranger wearing the face of the man I loved. We believe your husband has resurfaced, she said quietly. And he may be connected to a case we've been trying to close for over 20 years. My breath hitched. Resurfaced? You mean he's alive? The agents exchanged a glance, small but telling. They knew more than they were saying. We have reason to believe he contacted you recently, the man said. I shook my head. No, I haven't heard from him since he disappeared. I didn't tell them about the message. Check box 14. Something told me I should hold on to that secret a little longer. The agent slid another photo toward me, this time of a woman. Dark hair, sharp expression, eyes filled with something fierce and broken. Do you know her? The agent asked. I stared at the picture, feeling a strange twist in my stomach. No. Who is she? She's connected to Daniel's past, the woman said. Her name is Elena, and the last time she was seen, she was with your husband. I swallowed hard, my throat burning. Are you saying he hurt her? Their silence was worse than any answer. Before they left, the woman placed a card on the table. If he contacts you, call immediately. Don't try to handle this alone. He's not the man you think he is. When they walked out into the night, my chest felt hollow. I wasn't afraid of Daniel, at least not in the way they expected. I was afraid of never understanding him. Afraid of losing him to a past I didn't even know existed. After the door closed, I stood frozen for a long time. Then, from across the street, I saw Mrs. Carter's porch light blink once. Once, not the 3-blink warning she used before. Just one, a signal I didn't understand. I wrapped myself in a coat and hurried to her house. She opened the door before I could knock, her face pale, her eyes wide, not with fear, but with an old ache returning to life. They came, didn't they? She whispered. I nodded. FBI! They knew about Daniel. They knew about you, too. They showed me a woman, Elena. Her knees buckled for a moment, and she gripped the door frame. They found her? No. They said she was connected to him. A tear slipped down her cheek. My daughter. Her name was Elena. The room spun. My breath caught. The air between us thickened with a truth so heavy it felt like gravity itself had changed. Your daughter. I whispered. Daniel knew your daughter? She nodded slowly, painfully. Daniel wasn't always running from danger. Sometimes he was the danger, but he wasn't alone. Elena loved him enough to follow him into darkness. I felt the blood drain from my face. Where is she now? Mrs. Carter's lips quivered. She disappeared. The night Daniel came to say goodbye, my heart fractured. Daniel had never told me this, not even hinted at it. The man I loved had a whole life before me, a life filled with secrets, danger, loss, and a woman who vanished in his shadow. Why didn't you tell me? I whispered. Because I thought he changed, she said, voice breaking. I thought your love made him someone better, someone safe. I stepped back, shaken to my core, but before I could speak again, Mrs. Carter grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. Listen to me, she said, her voice suddenly sharp and terrified. If Elena is involved, if the FBI is here, that means one thing. My pulse pounded in my throat. What? She whispered the words like a prayer she hoped wasn't true. Daniel is coming back. I froze. Not past tense, not memory, not a warning, a promise. A cold wind blew across the street, rattling the windows as if the night itself was listening. And somewhere in the distance, or maybe just in my mind, I felt the ghost of Daniel's presence, growing closer. The night Daniel finally returned, the world felt too quiet, like the wind itself was holding its breath. I was sitting alone in the living room, the FBI card resting on the table, Mrs. Carter's warning echoing in my mind. Every shadow looked like a memory. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown dot, then came the soft knock dot, not heavy, not threatening, a gentle, familiar knock. The way he always used to come home late from work. Trying not to wake me dot, my legs trembled as I opened the door, and there he was, older than when he left dot, weary dot, haunted dot, eyes filled with a lifetime he never let me see. And yet, still the man who once held my heart so carefully in his hands. He didn't step inside. He didn't smile. He just looked at me like I was the one thing he wished he could keep. I never meant to bring my ghosts to your doorstep, he whispered. I wanted you to have a life untouched by who I was. My throat tightened. Then why come back? Because running from my past was easy, he said softly. Running from you wasn't. A tear slipped down my cheek. They're looking for you, Daniel, the FBI. They think I know, he said, lifting a small, trembling hand. And maybe they're right. Maybe I deserve every door that closes behind me. But you deserve the truth, even if it breaks us. I stepped closer, feeling the weight of every moment we ever shared. Tell me one thing, I whispered. Did you ever love me? Or was I just another secret you were trying to hide? His voice truly cracked for the first time since the night he disappeared. You were the only part of my life that wasn't a lie. Silence wrapped around us, thick and aching. I wanted to reach for him, to pull him inside, to pretend we could start over. But the truth he carried, it was too big, too dark, too deep. He looked past me at the warm light of our home, the home we built together, the life we tried to protect, and I saw his decision settle into his eyes. This house, this life, it doesn't need my shadow anymore. Daniel, wait, but he stepped back, slowly, gently, like a man walking away from the only heaven he ever knew. Promise me something, he said. When they ask about me, tell them I left long before the danger came. Tell them you didn't know anything at all. My voice broke. Where will you go? He gave a sad, tired smile. Somewhere my past can finally catch me. Somewhere I stop running. And just like that, He disappeared into the night. No dramatic chase. No goodbye kiss. No final touch. Just the fading sound of footsteps from a man who spent his whole life trying to outrun himself. I closed the door slowly, feeling the house exhale around me. Mrs. Carter's porch light blinked once soft, gentle, like a farewell blessing. And in that quiet, broken moment, I understood something I hadn't seen before. Some stories don't end with justice. Some don't end with reunion. Some don't even end with answers. Some end with a choice, his choice. To leave me safe. My choice. To let him go. And maybe, just maybe, that was the closest thing to love we ever truly had.